Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here today for a CCCApply non-credit application webinar. Our apologies to any of you folks who had did not receive your confirmation email, or if you had any problems signing in today. We will be recording this session, as you can tell, and we will be sharing it out. So before I jump into this, I want to introduce myself. My name is Patty Donahue. I'm the product manager for CCCApply here at the Tech Center. And I believe I have my partner, David Q, on the line, who's also going to be monitoring the chat for us today. So please, if you can, use the chat. Go ahead and throw questions in there. I'm going to save some time at the end for Q&A. So go ahead and use that chat. I also want to just remind everybody that, so I'm going to be demoing the non-credit application today, and it is live right now in the pilot environment. And don't worry, I'm going to show you all how to get there. And it will go live tomorrow night with the CCCApply 650 release. And just a little reminder about this, is I feel like it's a little bit ambiguous when we say the release is at 6 p.m. Actually, the release activities start at 6 p.m. and they last for several hours. So, you know, if you're up late after the release activities are complete, you'll be able to go to the production version. Otherwise, Saturday morning, everything will be live in production. Again, this webinar is being recorded and we will share this out. We'll post it in our support site. And we'll also blast it out in an email for everyone. So once I get to the demo portion, I'm going to show you where the support site is and encourage you all to register for an account there if you have not already. Okay, so just a couple things before we get into the actual demo. I want to just talk a little bit about, what is this? How is the non-credit application different than the standard application? And bottom line is, it's actually a work path within the standard application. So what we did is we worked with a pilot group of pilot colleges for about 12 weeks. And we determined that, what questions could be asked, what questions don't need to be asked. And by the way, I took a lot of slides out of this slide deck. It had way too many. I get caught in that trap a lot. But one of the kind of drivers behind the non-credit application development was the Assembly Bill 3101, which basically said that for students enrolling exclusively in non-credit courses, they do not have to go through the residency determination process. So that was the key, that, the green light to move forward with this non-credit work. It was really what was kind of blocking us all these years. We've been talking about doing this for years and years, but up until this bill, residency was required across the board, even for non-credit students. So now that no residency determination is required, we felt like, hey, let's just take the standard application, take out any questions that are not required to determine residency, and take out any other questions that are not necessarily pertinent to the non-credit student, and make this easy on the colleges. So this is a path within the standard application. And just to reiterate, the still has all the residency, the logic, all the state and federal and MIS reporting requirements, and all the other algorithms in it. But the non-credit the non-credit path, it doesn't have any residency questions again. It does have a unique URL for each college. That was one of the things that we were careful about, is we didn't want to get into the business of identifying who should apply through the non-credit app. We felt that is, your job. That's what the colleges have been doing. You identify who's a non-credit student, and then you direct them to this other front door to the standard application. So real quick, and we'll get into the demo. So getting to the non-credit app, very similar to the way students are getting to the non-credit app. Very similar to the way they're getting to your standard app. They will still have to either sign in if they already have an Open CCC account, or create an Open CCC account if they're brand new to the system. They've never applied through CCCApply at all before. They'll still have to create their account. So let's go ahead and go in and take a look at this. So first thing I wanted to show you is everybody has a unique URL for the non-credit application path. I've listed the production URLs here. This was just recently added this week, kind of in time for tomorrow night's release. And then the pilot environment, which is your sandbox test account environment, where you can go in and play, preview, decide if you want to add supplemental questions, and submit test applications for your implementation. So the production URLs are here now. So just to show you that these are unique to your college and branded, I'll just pick anyone. And you can see that it looks very similar. Whoops, let me do that again. I think it's because I'm already logged in here, am I? No. Let me try that one more time. We're supposed to go to the welcome page. Okay, so your branded header will show up on the welcome page. It looks just like this. So one of the things that the non-credit pilot group determined, when they got together and we talked about what the bare bones application should look like, and we put that out there and they tested. They said there's a couple things that are kind of deal breakers. There needs to be a welcome page that identifies it as a non-credit application. So you'll notice that this is a little different than the standard welcome page. It just says application for admission to college. This says the non-credit application to college. So again, if the student is brand new, they will create their account just like the standard application. But if they already have an account, they're gonna sign in. To save a little time, I'm gonna sign in. If we have some time to go back and look at Open CCC account later, we can do that. But I'm gonna assume that most of you know what the Open CCC account process looks like. Once you go through that once, you don't ever have to go through it again. You get your CCC ID, and then forevermore, or if you have to apply again to college, you just sign in like I did here. So it's landing on the My Applications page. So one of the things I think that's beautiful, beneficial of this non-credit path is we are leveraging a lot of the features and functionality of the standard app. So we're not going to have a My Non-Credit Applications page. We're going to have one My Applications page, and the student's history of submitted applications or applications in progress, whether they be non-credit or credit, will all be contained in one My Applications page. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new non-credit application. So here we are. You can see right off the bat we have less pages in this overall, but for the most part, again, we're leveraging the standard application information. For example, the terms for the standard app also apply for the non-credit app. I've thrown in a bunch of test terms into the administrator. I'm also going to show you that in a few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and choose one of my test terms. The education goals, these are dictated by the Chancellor's Office. They align to an MIS code, MIS data. So these are the same as the standard app. And maybe if I'm non-credit, I might take, undecided on the goal or improve my basic skills. And then the intended major or program of study. So I want to talk just a little bit about this. I don't want to get too hung up because I'm going to show you how these are where they're implemented. But this was one of the other kind of deal breakers that we worked on with the pilot to make sure that the non-credit application could have different intended majors / programs of study than the standard application. So that was one of the things we identified, we worked on, we developed, and we're able to release now, in pilot and tomorrow night in production. So you can go in and decide, we don't want any of these major programs to show up, or you can have them show up, but you can decide, I don't want any of those to show up. I just want to display our non-credit programs or courses or whatever you choose to put in here. So you do have the option to show different programs in the majors dropdown. So these are the ones these are all test stuff that I made up, but I'm going to choose an intended program and click continue. So the account information page looks very similar to standard because it is the standard. So this is an opportunity for the student to just review their OpenCCC account information, which is important because those are the fields, that's the data that gets passed through this application to you at the college in your downloads and in your report center. So I want to make sure that this is all up to date, especially since I didn't just create my account. And it looks like it is. And then as a tester in pilot, I've set my date of birth to show me as a minor, just for testing purposes. That's the only reason. But so as a minor, this box right here appears. The parent guardian information question. It basically determines whether the applicant is under the age of 19, 18 or younger, to be identified as a minor, or 19 and over. In the standard app, it applies much more. Some of the questions regarding residency for the most part, because we're basically trying to determine their status as a minor by which to determine residency. Are we determining it against you as an independent applicant or your parent or guardian? But I just wanted to point out that if you're not a minor, this section doesn't appear. You can see that I've either already completed an application in the past. This little blue highlight is the auto population, or obviously Chrome also does autofill. But so parent guardian information appears if you're a minor, and then the current mailing address section again will appear here. If your mailing address is the same as your permanent address, which is part of your OpenCCC account, you can check that box, that zips up, or opportunity to provide a current mailing or a different address here. If your address is outside the US, we want to make sure you read that right. At some point in the past, students were breezing through, they weren't reading that right, and they were entering a US address in a non-US set of fields. So just make sure you're reading it right. Yes, I confirm it's outside the US. Then the fields will change. You'll be asked to select a country. But if you have a US address, it's auto-populating in. I'm going to click continue. So the education page. And you can see some of my answers have auto-populated in from a previously submitted application. Let me reset this a bit. So let's see. So for the most part, usually when a student lands on here by default, these are the three sections they're going to see. Until we find out more information about them, we don't know what their incoming enrollment status is yet. We don't even know if they attended high school yet. So the first section, asking for their enrollment status. I'm going to say I'm a first-time student in college after leaving high school. You can see that there's also that concurrent enrollment. enrolling in high school or lower grade in college at the same time. But first time in college after leaving high school. So my college education, excuse me, high school education, if I say that I received a diploma or equivalent, like a proficiency test or a certificate of California high school proficiency, I'm going to get different questions. If I say that I'm not a graduate of high school, I'm not going to have to answer the questions about my high school completion. So if I say that I did get a diploma from high school, it's going to ask me for my high school completion date. Did I receive a diploma, GED, or certificate in California? Have you attended high school in California for 3 or more years? These are part of the standard application. Last high school attended. If I say that I attended high school and I say that I graduated, but if I say I did not attend high school, it's going to give me some error messages. So we have validation throughout, again, just like the standard app, saying, hey, something's not jiving right. Please fix one or the other answers. Say, oh, whoops, I did attend high school. And again, autofill is helping the student out. Of course, they can always change that. Say, no, I didn't go in California. I was in another state, or I was in California. And then the high school finder. So this may be new to some of you. This is an advanced search lookup. We populate this in the back end with all of the high schools coming from the California Department of Ed. So all of the CDS codes and schools are in the search, as well as the College Board, the CEB codes, and so the national schools. So I could start, the way this works is just like any search field, I can start putting in typing out the name of my high school. Just happens to be the same name of the city. Let me try a different one. Let's see. So the more you type in, the more the search results, zoom in on what, minimize. Let's see if I say Las Plumas. So I can start typing the name of my school, or if I'm not sure, or if for some reason the search finder can't find my school, you can also just type in the city that you went to high school in, and it will narrow down and provide all of the high schools and home schools in that city. So once that education page is complete, click continue. And I may have timed out, my apologies. Get back in there. So this is something I was going to do at the end, but we'll do it now. If this happened to your student, I really think this is a glitch on my end, but if this happened to your student, that application they started will show up in their My Applications page as an application in progress. Now, most students aren't going to have this many. Of course, this is my test account, but you can see it defaults down to the bottom. This is the college, the last page that I saved, and here's my application. And you can see right here that because I came in through the non-credit URL and I started a non-credit application, my confirmation number has a little NC prefix. We added that mainly for colleges to identify quickly one application. A standard app confirmation number doesn't have any prefix, but if it has the NC in front of it, kind of quickly that it's a non-credit app. Let's get in and I'll finish this application and then I'll take some questions because I see them coming in. Okay, let's get through this. Not sure why this timed out on me, guys. Just to take the happy path here, let's get to the next page. Okay, so the needs and interest page. I want to point out something about the needs and interest page right now, and it's timely. So this was, this page appears in the application right now. However, as part of the CCCApply redesign project that we went through with the Chancellor's Office and some variety of stakeholders this year, this page was determined to be possibly optional, possibly not needed. In terms of legal requirements by either state, federal, or local requirements. So though I believe at least 90% of colleges are using these questions, using the questions on the needs page to trigger rules, to trigger email rules, or just to capture information that's very valuable to them, this page is now optional. And this is, as soon as we get done with this, I want to just point out the release notes that are coming out for the release. We talk about it in the release notes that we've done the back end work to make each section of this page opt out. So you could take a look at your needs and interest page. What I'm showing you here is an example of, I opted out of 2 sections of this page. There's a section that's called, are you comfortable with English? It's a single question. It asks the student if they're comfortable reading and writing English. That is a section that could be removed upon request. The other section that I opt out of was the financial aid assistance section. You may want to keep those. So we didn't want to automatically remove the page or automatically remove any sections for you, but each one of those sections, so those 2 plus this athletic interest section, are you interested in participating in sports? And then this programs and services section are now configurable to opt out of so that they don't display at all for your standard app or your needs, your non-credit app. The one thing we did not get to was we didn't build this into the administrator. So right now you don't have the option to go into the administrator and toggle them on and off. For the time being, we're going to be handling those requests individually. So if you do want to turn the page off, you just send us a support note saying, yep, we want to turn it off, and we'll do that for you, or individual sections you can turn off. So just want to point that out. These are the 2 sections I opted for this demo to keep, and it's already remembering the last time I applied through CCCApply. These may change. I'm not interested anymore. You can always undo auto population. And then demographic information page. This is the same page as in the standard app. We didn't change anything. It's remembering previous responses. And obviously I can change that. Did want to point out for everyone that in this release, we have added another value to the gender field, non-binary. Since I have your attention, I'll point that out. And parent guardian information, education level, and then the race and ethnicity section. Also might take a moment to point this out as well if you haven't seen the new race and ethnicity section. This was revised, both the layout and the number of ethnicities and race groups. In this previously, apologies, previously we had a set group of races, or excuse me, race groups that would kind of trail down the page. It was kind of a full page layout. But in December of this year, we worked with a group of researchers who worked through the Chancellor's Office and implemented this. It's kind of an expansion revision. We actually did expand it. So we kept the Hispanic question, and this again is for non-credit or standard app. We kept the yes, no, are you Hispanic or Latino question, but we expanded the number of ethnicities. It used to be a handful of them. Now I think there's about 15 here that fall under that Hispanic or Latino race group. You can select one or none or as many as you want. you can clear that selection as well. But give this a look-see when you get a chance. These race groups now, they've been streamlined yet expanded. I think we added something like 180 Native American, Native American Indian and Alaska Native tribes and nations here. So there's quite a few, but we also streamline the layout. So getting to the end here. One of the other design changes in the streamlining effort we did this year was we removed several pages from the application. There used to be a full page called Review Your Application. And we felt like that was a barrier. It is an optional feature. Initially, it was an optional feature. Review your application before you submit, because once you submit your application, you can't go back and change any responses. So previously, we had a full page. We made the student do it and click a button at the bottom to continue. So we've streamlined that. Now it's optional. If they want to review their app, they click the button. They can see all their responses. We'll give them a chance to go back now and make any changes. But they don't have to click on that. We also removed the additional consent to release your information page. Used to be a full page, was just another click. Now we streamlined it into a section. This is required to respond. They don't have to give their consent, but they have to answer that question. And then the submit declaration here. None of the language has changed. We just tried to streamline the layout. And then once the consent piece is done and the submit declaration is checked, we submit the application. You can see the confirmation page looks exactly like the standard app. I'm going to just note down my confirmation number because I want to show you how to look that up in the report center. Okay, a lot of talking. And so why don't I pause for a second, right about at the halfway mark, and see if anyone has a question about what we saw. David Q, I don't know if you've been looking at these. There's quite a few
questions in the chat. So I don't know how would you like to go ahead and do this, Patty? Would you like for me to go ahead and just read them off to you one by one? You want to tell me if you want to address it or not?
I'll tell you what, let's take 5 minutes only, and we'll get through as many as we can, and then we'll stop. We'll go a little bit deeper, and then we'll stop and try to catch the rest, or as many more as we can.
That works.
All right, awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so the first question is, how do we get access to see one, I'm assuming the pilot instance, for our specific college?
Okay, great question. So I just happen to have this page open. Where'd it go? Oh, so I clicked on it in the beginning. Let me do this again. This is something that I learned today as I was doing this demo. I'm going to make these links not open in a new window so that you don't lose your page, but actually don't think it really matters to you. Once you click and grab your URL from here, you're not going to need this page anyway. I need it for demo purposes. But so this page is housed in the CCC public documentation space, which if you're unfamiliar with that, I will make sure that the URL is put in the, actually the URL is in the slide deck, and we'll be posting the recording and the slide deck. Let me open that and we'll go to that in a sec. But so here's the page of everybody's URLs. It's broken down by MIS code. You got your production URL, app URL, and your pilot environment URL. This is the one you're going to want to use to set up, test, make sure everything's running right, and before you go live with your production version to students. So I'll go back to the documentation route in a minute. Let's take the next question.
Okay. The next question is term setup the same as college credit?
Yes. So I'm going to get there in 1 second. I'm going I'm going to show you how to find this application I just created in the report center. And then we're going to go into the administrator and talk about terms, majors, rules, and supplemental questions. So let's put a pin in that one for a minute.
Okay. Has there been discussion about removing the education tab as well?
No, that hasn't been discussed. If it's something that, you know, the non-credit community wants us to do, let's hear it and we'll talk about it. And, you know, we can certainly do that. I think it was, you know, among this group, and there was quite a few people in this pilot. Kip, I thought maybe you were in that pilot, but maybe not. We looked at a variety of existing paper non-credit applications, and almost everyone we looked at had high school name, high school completion date, you know, maybe not some of the, I think we even saw some that said, have you attended high school for 3 years? Did you graduate in California? So we felt the education questions were needed or pertinent. So if not, let's hear it. We're right now at this point, once we go live tomorrow night, the application will be in maintenance mode, meaning we will fix bugs, we will accept requests for changes, put them through the non-credit subcommittee of the steering committee, vote on them. If they approve them, we'll make changes. Okay, how about the next question?
Let's see. Is the admin center the same as college credit, report center, download utility?
Thanks, Annabelle. Yep, I'm going to get to that too. So pin in that one. Sorry, let's go to the next one.
Okay, I think the next two actually kind of tie in well together. Is a social security number required? And is there a way to take the social security number out of the CCC application?
Okay, great questions. Thanks for those questions, guys. Right now, the social security number is part of the open CCC process. So that, you know, that very first account creation process where a student, let me sign out and come back in again, has never applied to college, to a California community college. They've never used CCCApply or have created an open CCC account in any other venue. Like, you know, if they were an existing student, but now your college is using Canvas, your existing students may have had to create an account for Canvas, not CCCApply. But the majority of students who have accounts created them because they were applying. So the open CCC, I'm not going to go through this whole process. I just want to point it out. It's a 3-page process. Social security number is one of those questions. So, you know, we ask the name, your legal name, whether you have a preferred name and any previous names, your permanent address, date of birth, email address, and social security number. And then, and also phone number. That's it. And then there's an additional page of setting up your username and password and some security questions. So right now, that's what the Open CCC account consists of. Point one. Point two is, so in the application, we don't ask them to provide a social security number. It was already provided in the account creation. So if you noticed when I was going through, I wasn't asked for social security. It was just part of that account that I could go back in and edit. By the way, social security number is not required. They have to tell us in the current layout that they don't want to give it to us, but we don't make them give it to us. A lot of students don't have a social security number. So we give them an out saying, you know, I do not wish to provide my social security number at this time. And then we ask another question, are you not providing it because you don't have one? And they can say yes to that. So those are the 2 points. However, right now, the Tech Center, the Open CCC team, there's a new product manager for Open CCC. It used to be under me with CCCApply. We've got a new product manager and they're working on a revision. I know you guys are going, hallelujah. It's going to be short. It's going to be simplified. It's going to be modern. We're getting rid of security questions. But I don't want to go too deep into it because they're designing it right now. They're getting feedback and they're making some changes. Now, the rumor is that the social security number will not be part of that process. I can't commit to that 100%. And if it's taken out of that, it may get put into the application. Okay, put a pin in that. If it does get put into the application, and maybe if it stays in the account, we have a redesign planned that we are chomping at the bit to do. We're just trying to get funded and get this in our priority list, but we're going to streamline the social security number like you can't believe. So even if it stays, it is not going to look like the hideous mess that it is right now. And I can say that because I was around when we had to implement it. And I know it's horrible, but it's going to get cleaned up. Worst case scenario, it stays and it gets cleaned up. Best case is it gets moved out of OpenCCC, and we're getting students through that process really quick. So sorry for the long-winded response. I hope it helped.
Okay. And then Patty, just as a time check, that was 5 minutes. So did you want to continue on?
Let's continue on. We'll look at the report center and the administrator, and then we'll finish up with some questions.
Okay.
So I'm just going to take a peek at this, guys, to make sure I don't miss anything. We already looked at resuming an app in progress, so I'm going to skip that. Okay, on to the report center. So I've got this queued up for me to log into. So some of you, most of you maybe, have a user account for the CCCApply Report Center. Just a note about that, the Tech Center isn't in the business of authorizing who should have access to this. So if you don't have a user account, please go to your IT director or your admissions director and find out who has the authority to give you an account. If there's nobody left, maybe somebody who was doing that and they're no longer there anymore, please contact us. We'll get somebody set up as the admin for that. But I'm going to sign in with my user account. Okay, I won't sign in. Let me try that again. Sorry, it's been sitting here for a while. Okay, let me try this one more time. Bear with me, guys. Couple quick notes about the report center. After all these years, and I know we've been saying this for a while, we truly are upgrading the report center. The reason we've been delayed over the past 6 months from upgrading was we're combining the CCCApply Report Center with the Data Warehouse Report Center. There's a lot more applications now being developed by the Tech Center that need a report center. So instead of having 5 different report centers or 5 different ways to generate reports for you, we're combining them into one system. So stick with us a couple more weeks. I think you're going to be very, very pleasantly surprised at the latest version of Jasper and the templates that we're going to start populating this with. So right now, this is the existing system. And short of doing a how-to demo, I'm going to just point out that because the non-credit app is part of the standard app, you can run any of the public template reports that we have set up for the standard app, and you will be getting the non-credit data, populating into those reports. We did create a specific non-credit app report. Again, it's really just, even if it wasn't called the non-credit report, non-credit applications can still populate into your table reports or your crosstab reports. You can weed them out easy now because there's a flag, but they will just be part of your regular standard application reporting. This one, again, we can add any columns to this, or we can remove columns, but this was just to kind of give you an idea of what's possible. This one shows, you know, the submit date, the fact that it's a non-credit app, and this field was added to the database. It's a Boolean field. It will be true if they came in through your non-credit URL. It will be false if they did not, meaning it's a standard application. I put the confirmation number in here, and you can see they all have NCs on them, and then some other information that might be valuable. But if you're new to this and you ever run a report in here and you're wondering why it's filtering in a weird way or it's not showing what you want, check and see if this icon in the upper right is the built-in filters. You can also filter in the report, but built-in filters, they get done when you're actually building the report itself. So I just built in, I want a time range. Usually when you're doing a report, you want some kind of time breakdown, right? So either a date or a term or something. In this case, I just decided I wanted to do a is between. So it's between, in this case, the 1st of June, and I have today. You can set that any way you want. College name, right now, it's set to show me everybody's, but I can go down even further. Here's my college B, and so it'll be set for one college. And this really only pertains to the colleges, the multi-college districts. So if you're a district user with an authorized account to get in here for your district, you will be able to see all the colleges in your district, and you'll be able to filter them accordingly. And then you can see that I have this non-credit flag filter already set to true. I could show them all instead for college B. So why isn't you showing up anything here? Let's try that again. Did I mess up something? Let's try that again. All right, that was a great demo. Let's see, what did I change? Let's try this again. Okay, I'll have to fix the college piece. Let me see if now I can get both true and false to show up. Okay, great. So something wrong with my college filter, I will fix that. But now you can see that, you know, this is every app that came in between June 1st and June 27th. And then, you know, I've got my flag indicator, but I could just show, you know, you can filter it any way you need to. So here's the table report. So non-credit is now a field, non-_credit. It's one of the 2 new fields we added for the non-credit app that you can throw into any application, ad hoc report that you might want to create. The other one is if you want to look up a full application, a full report on a single non-credit application, you can use any of these. Let me back up real quick. You can use any of these lookup reports that we have templates for. So you can look up a single application by somebody's date of birth, their CCC ID, a date range, which would be obviously, you know, more than one, their last name, last 4 of their social, or if you know the confirmation number, you can just go right to the full application report, look up. It'll ask you for the confirmation number. So I'm going to put in that NC, that application I just submitted. And you'll get the full application report. Again, we're real excited to get the upgrade to the report center because their new studio will allow us to do a lot more fancy reports. And this one will be the first one that gets cleaned up. But right now you've got every response to every question in the report in the application. You can see over here that there's 4 pages. Now, again, we're sharing this with the standard app. So there's going to be, you know, a couple pages of null values. But same full application report applies here. So let me go to, so that's the reporting aspects of this. You can run reports, schedule reports, look up a single application report immediately upon clicking submit. So if you got a student standing at your desk or someone's calling you on the phone, you can go into the report center immediately and look up their information. Now, I say that because the, your downloads, again, the non-credit app is it's going to be part of your existing standard app downloads. You don't have to do anything. IT needs to run one jar file update, but that jar file update is a common practice. After every release, most times the IT department will run the jar file update. But otherwise, you don't have to change your downloads, and you have to do very little in the administrator. So let me jump into that and get to the next part of this. Let me see here. Let's make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, so when we're talking about admin setup for this, so again, non-credit is basically the standard app with some pages hidden and a new URL to get in it. So, and a couple caveats to that. So your terms, the terms that you set up in the administrator for your standard app, those are the non-credit terms. And I apologize if your college is one of the few that have different terms for non-credit. We'll have to build that into the next version if it's, if there's a lot of you. But right now it's the same terms as the standard app. The majors, I pointed out in the application where you can have different programs or majors appear in your intended major dropdown. Because of that single change, unfortunately, it requires some setup. So if there's one takeaway from this on setting up, is if you decide that you want to use the non-credit app, you have to go into your existing majors, and I'm going to show you in one sec, and configure them for the non-credit app. Otherwise, no majors will show up in your non-credit app, and the student won't be able to get past that. So that's the one task, and I'm going to show you how. Just a couple other notes. Major categories, sometimes called the meta major filter in the standard app, does not appear in the non-credit. There is no meta majors, and there's no major category filter in the non-credit app. Rules, same rules as your standard app. You can create as many email messages and as many email rules as you want based on the non-credit flag or based on any other information. Supplemental questions, last point on this. The supplemental questions was the third of three kind of deal breakers. You got to do this for this to be valuable. Colleges said we want different supplemental questions, the ability to have different supplemental questions for non-credit. They're not always the same as the questions you may ask your standard credit students. So if you want to display supplemental questions in the non-credit app, you have to create a non-credit supplemental questions file and upload it. They can be the same questions or different questions, but you'll have to upload a second file. Reset downloads, exactly the same as the standard app, no change. You'll be putting in the confirmation numbers, resetting them for download the same exact way. And the spam filter, so because this is the standard app, the spam filter will be looking at every non-credit app, and if it thinks it's spam, it'll throw it in the filter. If it doesn't, it won't. Now, one thing here before we get upset about that, we are working on a whitelist for the spam filter, mostly for emails and domains. But it's a possibility if it's not working out and we're not seeing any spam at all coming through the non-credit URL, we can talk to the dev team about whitelisting any apps that come in through that URL. So let's take a look really quick. Hopefully this didn't time out on me as well. Yep. Okay, sorry about that. Let me get in here again. So signing into the administrator, this is I was mentioning this earlier. User accounts to get in here are, distributed by the authorized admin at your college. Somebody at your college has the authority to create an account for you. If you need help with that, or if they need help with actually getting in here and setting them up, they can contact support. We'll absolutely get them trained on that and set up those accounts. But then after that, we don't want to make a determination of who should get an account. But we're not going into users now. I'm going to launch the CCCApply Administrator, and it's defaulting to my college B, which is perfect. So again, really quick, because we're going to run out of time, let's just go over what's the same and what's different between the standard app and the non-credit app. I think if you get it in your head that the non-credit application really is the standard application, with just we've got some pages hidden, some questions hidden, we got a different front door, and there's an extra step for the majors program setup. For the most part, it is the standard. So you're going to be using the standard application admin modules for the non-credit. So the terms, again, they're going to be the same terms that's set up for your standard app. Now, it's possible that you could, just dawning on me that you could set up as many terms as you want. You could have a fall 2019 for standard and a fall 2019 for non-credit. If you give it a different code and different dates, I don't see why you couldn't do that. So there we go. Learn something. But the terms are set up in here in your standard application admin setup. Now the majors, I know that's not the term most non-credit folks like to use. It's usually programs or courses I'm learning. But this is where, what appears in that drop down on the enrollment page under intended major program of study, they get set up under majors in your standard admin module. Again, just to highlight that the meta major filter that's set up for standard application does not work for non-credit. It won't appear. So really quick, because we could do probably 20 minutes on setting up majors in general, but the one difference that we implemented was now we have an application type field. So if let's just take this accounting certificate, individual major or program, it can get set up individually, or you can do an import from a spreadsheet, but you got your description, that's what appears to the student in the dropdown. Code that does not appear to the student, your start date for your major or program, and then if it did have an end date, you could put the end date there, like if it was per term or per year. If it doesn't have an end date at this point, you can say no end date. Top code, program control number, and zip code. These are actually optional fields. You don't have to put anything in there. Right now, we don't populate anything. So it's your prerogative if you want to put those numbers in there yourself. And then here's the new field we added. So this program, accounting certificate, if you want it to just show up in your standard app, you set it for standard. If you want it to just show up in your non-credit app, you set it for non-credit. And if you want it to be in both apps, you would set it to both. And so that needs to be done for every, basically it has to be done just if if you're planning to implement non-credit, you have to come in here and touch this section. You got to decide what's going to appear in both, what's going to appear in just the non-credit, and what should just be in standard. If you're not going to use the non-credit app, if you don't have any plans to implement, you don't have to come in here and do this. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that. Rules, again, I'm going to go through this real quick. So this is a feature and function of the standard application. You can create, there's two types of rules. There's an error message rule, which you could create a rule that says, if, it can be based on anything. It could be based on any field. Just give you a quick highlight of what it looks like. So, you give your rule a name, and you can say, based on any of the application fields. It could be one of your supplemental questions, or it could be an address, a city, or it could be even derived fields are in here. All the education, if they're, if you're looking to highlight your special admits or anybody, you can build a rule around it and say, if the applicant came in through the non-credit URL. So I got these references right here to make it a little bit easier. But let's say if, and I got the non-credit field in here. If the non-credit field is true, that means that they came in through the non-credit URL. Then send an email, and this right here is the message that I created in the messages center module. So you would, since I'm using that template, so these are the messages that I have created in my messages module. Send the welcome message from, and this is your from, so it would be, admissions at CCC Tech Center, admissions at mycollege.edu. And the subject line of that email is welcome to my college. If that's your rule, you can quickly check and make sure there's no errors in the rule. The message that I created, the welcome message, had some merge fields in it. So you can kind of see what the message will look like. But again, it's got to be true, right? So if they did come in through and the non-credit field is true, you can kind of check and make sure your message looks okay. And then upon submission, if the student meets the criteria in that rule, they'll get that email. And I know a lot of you are familiar with this. You may use the rules in your SIS instead of here, but a lot of colleges use this for welcome messages or based on any criteria. So real quick, and then the other rule or the other type of rule would be an error message. So sorry to go down this line. Let's say the student is a minor and they're still in middle school and they're trying to apply. Or based on any criteria. The other kind of rule you can create is just like I did it with the logic. You build the logic outright and it's a pop up this error message if they meet this criteria. So you can display an error message on the screen and you can prevent them from submitting an application. So two types of rules. Messages section, this is where you build out your email content and then you reference it in your rule. Supplemental questions, we touched on this briefly. If you want supplemental questions to appear in your non-credit, we've got a process all documented for you. You just have to upload a specific XML file for your non-credit questions. Even if they're the same as your standard. You got to do one for standard, one for non-credit. And then finally, reset downloads, exactly the same process as the standard app. If you've already downloaded an application, whoops, yeah, I just threw in this number. I'm not sure if it's right. And you need to reset the status so that you can download it again. You would drop your, oh, I think this is why. If you drop, let me check that. Nope. Oh, there's no submitted application. This is a number I made up. Anyway, I'm happy to work with you after this webinar, go through all the details of reset downloads and anything else in here that you want, like more details on. I know we're just about to wrap up and we probably don't have much time for Q&A, but I want to point out that the release notes, this should go out to everybody and across all of our mailing lists. If you didn't get one and you want one, throw your name in the chat. We'll make sure that you get on our mailing list and get the details from this release. There's a breakdown of everything regarding the non-credit application, key features, changes to the, there's not a lot you have to do, but whenever you hide a field that exists in another app, there needs to be a null value. It needs to not break your downloads. So all of that is done for you. We've tried to make it as easy on you as possible to use your non-credit URL and start accepting applications. So David, I know we're 1 minute over. How about if anybody who would like to stay for a 5 minutes of Q&A? I'm happy to stay. Otherwise, I don't want to keep folks longer than they've signed up for.
Okay. Do you want to give like a minute or two for people to kind of decide if they want to stay? Let's see. So there's quite a few questions in the chat, just so you know, Patty. There's about, looks like almost 30 to 40 questions in the chat.
Okay, we probably won't get to all of them, but how about we say for those that are leaving, look for the announcement. We'll send out to everybody who registered for this event. We will send you a link to this recording and the slide deck, so you can pass it around. And from that point, we'll answer a couple more questions if you're able to stay. Thank you.
Okay. So let's continue on down the list. Let's see. What if you didn't attend for 3 years in high school?
Well, let's see. What if you didn't attend for 3 years in high school? So that's a question for admissions. CCCApply just collects that info. So I guess maybe if that was your question, if you're able to come off mute and ask me, is there something more to that question, or are you asking, would there be like some kind of validation? Like apply won't stop you. You would just answer no to it. Okay, we'll go to the next one.
How often is a list of CEBs and high schools updated in the system?
It is updated, let's see, CDS comes to us bi-monthly. The College Board list comes to us quarterly. So every other month. And I know that, let me tell you what a headache the CDS codes updating in the system is. There's always little problems, and it's not us. I mean, if the search isn't working, that's us. But if there's a problem like, hey, my school's not in that list, it's really hard for us, because if we override the list and go, okay, well, we'll put it in for you, the next time the list comes from CDS, it overrides it. So we've got a page where we direct people, please contact CDS. They've got a website for this, and give them that information so that it's coming from the source. And so we're not overriding it every time. Yeah, thanks for that question.
Is there a paper version available?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Will the application be available in Spanish and other languages?
Yes, eventually. Not this first round, but we're working to internationalize the standard application. In fact, all of our apps, we will start with Spanish. That's on the roadmap for this coming year. We're trying to, ascertain the funds and the schedule of when that's coming, but yeah, that is definitely part of the plan.
Who should we contact about making changes to our application?
Okay, great question. So making changes to your application in the sense of implementing, or Are you talking change requests? Is this person who asked that question still with us by chance?
Alicia Gregory. Let's see. Looks like they're still online.
Well, Alicia, if you're able to unmute and clarify a bit, because, you know, two wildly different answers. If it's changes to like, hey, we feel like there's some more changes you guys need to make to this application, like change request wise, then you can send it directly to me. I'll make sure that my email address, my name and email address is part of the recording email that goes out. As product manager, it would kind of start with me. I'll work with you and get background info and then roll it up to advisory committees and then it gets prioritized if approved. You're talking about how do you get started with setting up the non-credit app. So that would be, if you can see on the screen, and I'm glad we're recording this, the Enabling Services Division here at the Tech Center are standing by waiting to support you. They should be reaching out to each college to let them know credit apps are available now. Would you like to schedule a kickoff call? We've also got online documentation that's available that you can get started on your own. You can definitely get started looking at the, again, the non-credit URLs. Did I lose them again? These are available now. I promised I would show you how to get here. So this website is all over release notes. Almost everything that goes out from CCCApply can get you to this public documentation space. And you can see that all our data dictionaries, all our release notes, support information, user stats, how to get to the pilot environment, everything is contained in this wiki space. So we will make sure that the URL to get here is included in our recording announcement. Okay, next question.
Will you be adding an other race category? One of this person's students asked them this question recently.
Yeah, good question. We got one other request from that. So we have this on a kind of our next agenda for the steering committee that isn't going to meet until middle of August. But really, I have a feeling they're going to kick it up to the group that did the work behind that race and ethnicity expansion. And in fact, any of you see the special implementations link, any of these kind of special projects, implementations that we've developed over the years, they're accessible from this website as well. So that new race and ethnicity, probably more information you could ever want on it. But it talks about the project, talks about who did it, and you could contact them directly. Also, it drills down to even more information about that study, who did it, here's the primary contacts. So we're gonna let the Chancellor's Office and this group kind of make that call, but we're open to it, absolutely. Next question.
Is it possible to add a supplemental page for additional criteria we need to collect for AEBG?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I had wanted to highlight a college that's going to be working on this. They're just not quite ready yet, but that's exactly what supplemental questions are perfect for. So all of those AEBG, I think it is, the adult education block grant, so BG, all of those requirements, and I know there's some federal non-credit requirements. When we took a look at these, give me 1 second. I know we don't have too much time for this, but on this website, there's tons of information, not just about setting up the non-credit, but also, not there. In the non-credit pilot group that just concluded, we put a lot of information in this dashboard. There's also some child pages, but we took a look at those questions and the requirements coming from let's see, is it on here? I was positive it was on here. But there's a set of requirements. I think you're referencing them with the AEBG, and there may even be more. And we said, okay, so here's these requirements. Do we need to go back to the drawing board and add questions? And everybody said no. Most of those questions we capture already. I think there's a gender question and some other ones. And anything that we don't capture in the application proper are perfect for the supplemental questions. And then we can take a look, you know, a couple months down the road or right away if we need to, and say, okay, yeah, we do need to build this into the application. We can always do that. But at least for now, these are each of the recordings from all the meetings we had with the pilot group, and we discussed those. And I know that that set of questions is on here. But what we're planning to do for everybody as kind of a bonus is we're going to build out a supplemental question template with those questions that at least the federal questions and the state questions that are required that we don't already have in the application. And we will just give you this template, and you can use it, you can tweak it, you cannot use it, but we wanted to make it easier on you so that you can launch this thing with those questions included.
Patty, I'm sorry to interrupt you. There's someone else that's sharing their screen right now. I don't know if you were trying to share something on your screen. So if you are currently sharing your screen, there we go. Okay.
Now what do you see? Just the Zoom?
Just the Zoom like meeting, yep.
Oh, I must have stopped sharing, so sorry about that, guys.
Oh, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure in case you were showing people something that they were able to.
I wasn't finding it very well, but I was showing this non-credit project dashboard page that's got a lot of information and child pages. So to the answer to that, those special AEBG questions, we're going to be writing up probably something in one of the Digital Future newsletters about the non-credit app, and we're going to feature that. Not sure exactly when that's coming out, but we'll make sure everybody gets a copy and the template.
Okay.
So, how about we got two more minutes? Another question.
Okay. Regarding Latino ethnicity list, why are countries being considered ethnic groups instead of just country of origin?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. That whole race and ethnicity expansion, again, I don't know if my screen share wasn't working when I was taking you guys to that. Did you see that at all, David?
Yes.
Okay, under the special implementations, and it talks about that whole, how they did it and why they did it. I mean, so the country of origin and the, I guess it's nationality. Some of those questions are in our international application, but as far as that race and ethnicity, the first thing is that the federal government dictates what we say and what we collect. As long as we collect at least what the federal government demands, we can expand it. Honestly, I don't know every detail about this, but here's a ton of information that you can read up on it, the background of why they did it, how they did it, and then again, click on this expansion link, because this really goes into, you know, all of the research that they did and why they did what they did. And it also gives their contact info. How about one more?
Okay. Where do I add supplemental questions?
Okay, so supplemental questions get added. I briefly touched on this. These may be questions that I've already answered probably, but in the administrator, in the administrator, it's pretty intuitive and it's based on your user account. But let's say you're a user who you've got the standard app set up, you've got the promise grant / bog fee waiver, and you guys are using the international app, you've got the whole thing. Then your user account, you know, it will provide all these different applications. I think you'll default to land on the CCCApply app within the administrator, but just a heads up that, you know, what appears in the applications drop down is based on your user authorizations. So you may only see this, it may default to this, but it's in the standard application area of the administrator where you set up everything. You set up your terms, your programs, your supplemental questions. Now in the public documentation area, we're going to be highlighting, so on this page, non-credit implementation home, it's kind of a consolidation of links. It will break down your URLs, the step-by-steps for setting up those things. We've got the administrator user guide that will walk you through, everything. Configuring terms, configuring your majors or programs. So administrator is where you physically upload your supplemental questions. Documentation will get you there, or we will provide support. Okay, how many people we still have on the line? Wow.
65.
65. Okay, well, if you guys want to stick with, let's do one more question.
Okay. This is a good one. How do they access the non-credit application from the college application? How do they pick credit versus non-credit?
Okay, great question. So this is one of those ones where we did not want to dictate how you do that. So, kind of along the lines of, we didn't want to be in the business of identifying who's non-credit and who isn't. We are basically giving you this URL to put it wherever you want. You can create a page on your website, on your admissions page. You can put a link on your admissions page website, or you can have a full page with instructions. You can keep it off your website and have it, on some kind of marketing materials or campaign, or however you want to distribute it. We were hoping that the pilot colleges and that pilot program, we would start to get into some of that and come up with best practices and offer suggestions. But I think we didn't, the timing was such that they didn't have it in production yet. So we were kind of thinking ahead about how they wanted to do it, and they just haven't had a chance yet. So what I suspect is, now that this is going live in production, we can start communicating about how are you doing it? What are you going to do with this URL? Kind of system wide, it's very likely that we will add a non-credit section to CCCApply.org. This is kind of under development right now. We're revising this whole website to be more implemented with the MyPath, the CCC MyPath, and I think that the more that we start to incorporate CCCApply into the MyPath, it makes sense, especially for non-credit, because that's the beauty of MyPath. It's a stepped process, not just for the application, but exploring colleges, exploring careers, applying to college. What do you do after that? Here's a checklist, and that's what's so great about MyPath. So this whole website is being revised in MyPath right now, and I believe we are going to have a high school page and a non-credit page, or at least sections, so that students can find you if they realize they're non-credit. That was kind of one of the things that we debated a lot. Does a student know they're a non-credit student? We don't know. So that's why we wanted to put those kind of big decisions into your hands. All right, we'll go to 120, 2 more minutes. One more question.
Okay. This will probably be a good one to end on. Is this application available now for use? What if we have used an in-house application, so we continue using that, or just go with the CCCApply non-credit application?
And that's absolutely up to the college. If they have a better if they have an online application that's working for them, by all means, do what's easiest for your students and do what's easiest for you. Nobody is forcing anybody to use this. Again, implementation and adoption is optional. We just wanted to, it was important to the Chancellor's Office and the Tech Center to deliver an online non-credit option. Instead of paper applications, we wanted to get something that was easy and that was digital and was as streamlined with the standard app as possible. So you didn't have to do a lot of work.
And I want to make sure you cover the other part. Is the application available now?
Oh, thanks. So the pilot application's available now. The production application, let me go back to this housekeeping page. So right now, live in the pilot environment. So you could go to that non-credit URL page and click on your college pilot URL and play with it now. The one caveat to that is if you get stuck on the first page, it may be that you don't have any terms set up. But since terms are the same one as your standard, that's really unlikely. So so you can go and test out the pilot right now. Tomorrow night is our production release. So either late night tomorrow night, you can look at you can implement this in production, or Saturday morning it will be live. Basically as soon as you make your link available to students and you work, and again, remember that majors piece. You've got to, if you decide you want to use it, you just have to go in and work those majors and say whether they're going to be, like right now, if you went into the administrator and you click on majors, you're going to see all of your standard application majors. Are those the ones you want to display in your non-credit dropdown? If yes, you still have to come in and set each application type to both. If you don't, nothing will show up in the non-credit. If you take a look at them and say, some of these we want to show up for non-credit, but for the most part we have different ones. And we'll work with you on this. You can export this whole list. And when you export this whole list, you'll see the you'll see the application type column now appear. Because it's added in. If you don't have any plans to implement non-credit, you don't have to touch anything. Nothing's going to break in your standard app. But the first time you export this file, you'll see the application type. And from that point on, you'll have to incorporate a value there. So standard means it's only showing up in standard app. Non-credit means it's only showing up in the non-credit app. Both means this major or program will appear in both apps. So you have to go in to the majors, decide what should be in both, and then add new ones. If none of these should appear in your non-credit, you can either export, and then based on the export format, right, you'll get a spreadsheet, a CSV file. It'll have all these columns, plus basically it'll have a column for every one of these fields, right? And you'll see the new application type field column. You can add 10, 20, 30, as many new majors to the spreadsheet that you want. Follow the rules in the user guide and then set the type and then import it. Or if you don't have that many, you can add them one at a time. You can add new ones, or you can edit existing ones. Well, I'm sure we could go on and on, but unless there's something really pressing, if somebody wants to come off mute and ask, I think what we'll do is, with so many questions, I could put together a Q&A page to go along with this slide deck. I'm happy to do that and send that out so that all your questions are answered in writing. But,
yeah, it looks like there's some requests for the Q&A docs. I think that would be great, Patty.
Okay. Yep, absolutely. I'll do that. And again, this slide deck will be included too with the recording. A link directly to it. There's a couple pages at the end that I just decided to include with kind of a chart, a little comparison breakdown of, what's the difference, standard app versus non-credit. There's 2 pages there. It's not everything, but it's kind of some key information, and then just kind of a high-level features and benefits. So we'll make sure it's all bundled together, the slide deck, the recording, and the FAQ, or the Q&A.
Awesome.
So thank you so much, David. I appreciate your help. I appreciate you staying late.
Yeah, totally.
And all of you as well. Thanks for sticking with us an extra half hour. Take care.